Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Collective Consciousness Show, episode number 36. I have my guest with me today, Mr. Ryan Reed. How's it going, Ryan?
Good. How are
Good.
you?
I'm doing well. We got a lot to get to today. A
Yeah.
lot of exciting stuff,
Yeah,
a lot
I'm
of
excited.
controversial stuff, I'll say. YouTube might take this down, but that's fine.
It's all right. It's all right.
We'll move past it. Um, a lot of you have probably heard of the movie Leave the World Behind on Netflix, and that's kind of where we want to start today. It's
Yeah.
kind of it's been a very hot topic recently. A lot of people are coming up with different theories
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. We're talking about blackouts, we're talking about, alien invasions, and it goes so many different places. So I know I saw it, recommended it to you. What were some of your takeaways?
Um, so I'm just gonna be completely honest. I didn't really know what to expect of the movie, to be
Right.
completely honest. Just with the writing strike and everything that's been going on, quality of movies just aren't how they used to be, just in general. Everybody tries to make something, and I think they try too hard. And
Right.
I've seen personally that the quality of movies is just going down, like past, I don't know, 5, 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Um, but I would say from part two, like right around, I would say the flood,
Uh-huh.
till the end of the movie, I really enjoyed. I thought they actually made that part of the movie really well. It was very eye opening
Yeah.
in a lot of aspects.
Hmm.
Definitely poked my brain a little bit, got me thinking. Um, but yeah, how about you?
Yeah. I saw a lot of symbolism. That was one of the first things. Was there was a lot of stuff that maybe would have gone unnoticed to the untrained eye, because when you learn about this stuff, you kind of train your brain to look for it, and when
Hmm.
you see something, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
So when other people in the movie are listening to what the people are saying, I'm looking in the background for different stuff. And so when I see that picture on the wall with a bunch of like eyes on it, I'm like, "Oh, Illuminati,
Illuminati. Yep.
all-seeing eye."
Hmm.
That they're trying to put that in there, you know?
Yeah.
And I just catch a bunch of this different stuff. So I noticed a lot of symbolism. I noticed a lot of I guess maybe we can get into this predictive programming, because they made a lot of movies about blackouts and
Hmm.
different stuff happening,
Hmm. Yeah. If a blackout hypothetically were to happen, I personally wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I remember in 2019, right around when COVID was getting to be a thing, um, my mom had told me about like 3 or 4 movies that were like very similar, almost too similar to the point where you're
Right.
like, oh, like how do they know this? Like,
Right. Yeah.
how
Yeah.
do you even how do you even put that into motion without exposing it way before it happens? I think there
Right.
was a movie with Matt Damon, and it was the same thing, but I believe it was with monkeys. Um,
Yeah.
and it caught my eye. And another one was it might have been the same movie. I'm blanking now, but the way that they operated with this given virus or disease, whatever it was,
Right.
they I'm trying to think of a good way to say this. Medical attention was required in order to keep society
Right.
stabilized in
Right.
what they deemed as a um, necessary means to an end.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Um,
For anyone that knows what I'm doing.
so yeah, I mean, I see a bunch of similarities. You see everybody talking about The Simpsons and
Right.
every episode that they have
Yeah.
made over the years and all this stuff that has
Right.
happened. And
Yeah.
like at some point, you can't be like, oh, there's a coincidence. But I also
Right.
think there's an aspect of once somebody has that idea and makes it into a movie, it doesn't take much, especially when you have a good amount of power. It doesn't take a lot to
Right.
actually take whatever you have made and let's say a movie or something that you see when you're that high up, like you can make any of that come true.
Right.
And again, if you're high enough, it's not your fault.
Right.
So,
At, yeah, people don't like having conversations about people that are in positions of power. They don't like having conversations about the possibility of those people wanting total control and power because it's scary. You
hmm
know, that people don't like thinking that their entire life could be turned upside down
hmm
tomorrow. That
I
we could
agree.
be sitting here right now and the lights go out and everything, and God forbid any of this happens and we're stuck here and we have nowhere to go, nobody to communicate with. People don't like the fact that that could happen tomorrow, and they don't especially like the fact that people that they believe are doing good things for the world, if
Yeah.
people actually believe that someone like Bill Gates is doing good things for people, they don't want to believe that those people are actually trying to kill them.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
agree. I
And
agree.
so it's scary. It's
Yeah.
really scary to watch a movie like Leave the World Behind and think that that could be us in a week,
In
in
6 months,
right,
like
in six.
you don't know.
You have no clue, and
Yeah.
that's the thing, is that they have been putting this stuff out there for years,
hmm
and people want to either ignore it or just not talk about it. Like it's not something that people want to face, you know?
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Um, yeah, I saw just a lot of similarities or just things that um, can happen. I saw throughout the movie there was the one part where um, they left GH's house and they're driving down the highway and you see this like pile up that goes on for
Uh,
hundreds of miles and you see all Teslas and you're like,
right.
whoa, like there's so many Teslas. And then she walks up and she sees the window sticker, the manufacturer sticker on the car. She's like, oh crap, like there's nobody
Right.
in these cars, like.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, oh, like have we gotten to that point of
Right.
society where um you know technology is a lot stronger than we realize. In Florida, there's self-driving cars on the road. They're like marked differently. They have a almost similar to like the DeLorean from Back to the Future. They have
Hmm.
this little like capsule on
Yeah.
top and it spins, but it lets you know that there's no one in the car. So like be cautious when you're around it. It's crazy to think that like people have been trying to say that flying cars and self-driving cars, like they predicted that back in 1987 or
Right.
whenever Back to the Future was
Yeah.
made. They thought that was going to be 2015, and then we got to
Right.
2015 and it wasn't there, or at least to that was the extent of our knowledge.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, boom, it's just there.
Right.
8 years later, 9 years later, and we're like, that didn't just come out of nowhere. You can't just. I mean, maybe
Right.
you can build something,
Yeah.
an idea like that in 9 years, but when it's been out there for like 40 years,
Right.
you're like, oh, like this was in their minds a long time ago.
Yeah. It
So,
it makes you think when they make all these movies and they do all these things, it really it makes you think like how many people are in on this? Like people say that we're going to discredit all your theories about stuff because how many thousands of people would have to be in on this, because look at how many people are making a movie and look at how many people are, you know, in on making, a TV show. And it's like, yeah, like they have planned this stuff out. Like there are no coincidences. It's not a coincidence that, the Simpsons were talking about Donald Trump becoming president, or, 9/11, or any of these other, or Kobe dying in a helicopter crash, and
mm-hmm.
everybody's just like, haha, that's funny. Like the, you know, he's probably a time traveler, whoever made the Simpsons. And it's like, you
Yeah,
you look at it, and even like books like 1984, George Orwell, when he's talking about a dystopian state and how the government is, trying to create a new world order and bring us all together, and one world government, and basically we're all slaves. Like, why is he talking about that years before, the UN comes out with you own nothing and be happy? And it's basically the same concept. You think that this stuff hasn't been planned out for years, but there's so many instances of it. Like, it's easy to discredit, but once you look at it, it's so clearly obvious that at least a few of these things have been orchestrated events, you know?
Yeah, what I actually find funny, you mentioning 1984 and George Orwell.
Yeah.
So whether or not like we recognize it, like to me, like everyone says history is a pattern, right? It always ends up repeating itself.
Right.
Happens every pandemics or viruses happen every 100 years. You had the Black Plague, you had the
Right.
Spanish flu.
Yep.
Um, I think history, to some aspect or some degree, never changes. There's always people or groups or whoever that want that complete control of power and they want to take over everything. You had Genghis Khan, you
Right.
had the Song Dynasty, like you had
Right.
all of those civilizations that we claim to know so much about, or but we never experienced it. You don't know what it's
Right.
really like, and I personally think like history is just the same thing over and over again. It's just technology has gotten better. We have different luxuries in our life. We don't
Yeah.
focus as much on building a pyramid because we build a skyscraper.
Right.
It's different throughout history, and like even with Hitler, he said the same thing. He had a speech, and Gorbachev, I think, they both had speeches talking about the same thing back in that was the 40s.
Right.
Um, so I think it's always been in history. I just think it's something that you kind of just you're not cognizant, or you are cognizant of it, but you just kind of slips your mind a little
Right.
bit. You're just like, oh yeah, there's just people out there. They're gonna do whatever they're gonna do. It's
Right.
not like, oh, me or anyone else can. One person is not gonna stop me. Even hundreds of thousands, they're just gonna do what they want.
Right.
And it's scary to like think about that, but at the same
Mm.
time, you're like, you only got like one life, and if you're
Right.
just gonna worry about there being a blackout every
Yeah.
day of your life, like
Right.
that's not how you want to live. Like I'll deal with it
Yeah.
when it gets to that. And look, I'm gonna be honest, like humans have evolved into a very like comfortable, non like in terms of our human instincts and like being primals, that's not really existent anymore in a lot of humans.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the I think it is part of the problem. And like not to knock on anyone if you have a disorder or something like this, or like an eating disorder, or maybe you're on the other spectrum and
Right.
you're a little bit bigger. um Natural selection is going to kick your butt, especially if something
Yeah.
like that were to happen. And I
Yeah.
know we've talked about this like a few times, but
Yeah.
it's true. Like every other species except for us still goes through natural selection. They still evolve.
Right.
We're just involving in a more intellectual way rather than
Yeah.
physical, and animals don't have that complex.
Yeah.
So
I think it's absolutely insane that people think that natural selection won't catch up with us at some point.
yeah.
Do you see the way that the world is going? Do you think that if it comes to a place where we have to fight for our lives, that someone that is eating healthy and going to the gym 4 or 5 days a week isn't going to outlive some guy who's eating Cheetos, sitting on his couch,
300,
watching
yeah, 400
whatever?
pounds.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you seriously telling me that's not a thing?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, if it comes to that and we need to fight for our lives, I can 100% fight for my life better than somebody
Mm.
who's not
Hmm.
prepared to run a mile,
Yeah. That
you
that's a
know?
that's a very good point, because I like the way you just emphasized that. You said I can fight better,
Right.
which is true. Like again, we've evolved into a less primal version. Like it's apparent, but just going to the gym and eating healthy, like if we were
Right.
actually to break out into like a purge or like a civil war,
Yeah.
like to be completely honest, like that's not all that's gonna save you. Like you're gonna have some sort of advantage, But it's not like you've been training your whole life to fight in a war, or you don't have some sort of military training or background,
Right.
unless you
Yeah.
do, and that's what you do every day.
Right.
But for like the average person, like you and I, going to the gym like 6 days a week, that will give us some sort of advantage. But is it enough?
Right. You have no, you
Probably not.
right. You have to have the know-how of how to do something.
Yeah.
You know, you have
Mm-hmm.
to um so this is actually a perfect example. You remember Jake Nelson from Texas
Yeah.
Roadhouse. So he's had like different health issues and stuff with his heart and everything, and you know, he's a bigger guy,
Yeah.
but he has all the know-how of like how survival. When he came on, he was talking to me about if something happens, he knows how to move out to the woods and be self-sufficient with him and his family, and he knows all these survival things. But that's a thing where like he knows all the things, but physically is he there? Like, can he? Will his body let him? And that's
Yeah.
not even, he's had, you know, health issues. So is that even like, that's not even 100% his fault. You know,
Yeah.
you can't control, you know, everything, the circumstances that God's given you physically to a certain extent. But then there's someone like me or you who, you know, we're healthy. We're, you know, we don't have health issues like that. We're
Not that
at,
I
you
know
know,
of. Not that I
right.
know
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
man.
Right. We don't have heart issues like he has. So, but we don't have the know how that he has, you
Yeah.
know? So everybody's at like totally different levels here,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, I also think it's very interesting, like growing up where we grow up, um, because you have like the up north where all the farmers are, and then you have
Yeah.
down here, which is like a little bit of everything, right? Like where we are right now is like not downtown, but it's not rural. It's um, is that suburban? Is that like the mix? I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
It's
Suburban.
been a
Yeah.
while. This is like a prime example of suburban, and like where I live is like a complete mix. Like I live on like the line, so I have
Yeah.
like farms um
Yeah.
around me, and I have Bel Air like 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
Um, but it does make me kind of wish, like I was like, I wish I like almost kind of grew up in like a farm setting, because
Yeah.
it teaches you so
Oh,
much.
100%.
It teaches
Yeah.
you a lot. And just now, like me just eating like differently and cleaner,
Yeah.
I definitely wish it was that way too, because I could grow my own food. And I mean, would I love to learn? Of course.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know how I don't know how well that would go.
Yeah.
And but like if we were in that kind of blackout environment, I'd be forced to learn. That's what nature
Yeah.
does to you. You either
Right.
learn or you die.
Right. You
So
adapt or you perish,
yeah,
you know?
and hey, look, like I'm not any kind of like extremist or anything.
Right.
I just look at things that I see
Right.
that have the potential of happening, and like I keep it on the back burner. But like again, that's not what I think about every day.
Right.
You know, like it's there. But I'm like, dude, like I'm 18. Like I
Right.
just want to live.
Yeah. And
So
I to touch on something you said a couple minutes ago is that you can't live your life in fear, but you absolutely have to be aware.
yeah,
Because if you're not aware, then you're not prepared at all. I'd rather be prepared 2% than 0,
yeah,
or 4% than 3%. I would, you know,
yeah,
I'd rather be more prepared than not at all. So the fact that we're having this conversation and we're kind of floating ideas out there, and you know, we're aware of it, that's good. But is it going to be enough? How long is it going to last? There's all these questions, and
yeah,
it's like part of it is they float these things out there because they want people like me and you who are aware of it, or people who are just being introduced to it. They want to induce fear in us. They want us to be scared, and they want us to be scared because they want us to fight each other. Because when this stuff happens,
propaganda.
propaganda, and when this stuff happens, we don't know how to deal with it. So we start fighting amongst ourselves instead of coming together like we should have done all along and work to find a solution.
Yeah,
You know? That's what they're doing. They're by putting all this stuff out there, and there's a race war, and there's politics, and there's all this other stuff, and everybody's focused on that stuff, And so they're so used to fighting with each other and arguing with each other that when something happens and our lives depend on it, we're not ready to communicate with each other. And that's what they're doing this entire time. So everyone thinks that Trump versus Biden is the biggest election and the most important election, but then come June, we're all blackout. We're all in our houses. We don't know what to do. We have to, use different means to communicate with people and provide for ourselves. And none of us know how to do it because we're all way too focused on Trump versus Biden and the George Floyd incident and what happened with the new virus and what's going on in Ukraine and what's going on with this and that and Israel versus Palestine and all this other stuff that in the grand scheme of things doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to know how to communicate with each other because we're too busy fighting about that.
Yeah, like it matters to an extent, but I feel like they also push out, regardless of if it is true or if it's not.
Mm-hmm.
They always have something else to push out,
Yeah.
regardless of what side you're on, left, right. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's their job, right? Being media or being in a higher position, like if they need to keep that position, that's their job.
Right.
They have to push out some sort of narrative or some sort of story. Like there's no way around that. And I think
Right.
that's just like that's always how it's going to be. You kind of just have to pick and choose what you actually pay attention to, and out of those things that you pick and choose, just learn a little bit about it.
Yeah. You have to be aware, but you don't feed into it,
Yeah.
Because they want you to spend all your time on Twitter
Fighting on Twitter.
yeah,
Yep. There's no need.
Right.
There's no need.
They want you to spend your time on Twitter arguing in the comment section with this guy that has 4 followers and still hasn't moved out of his mom's basement and is sitting there just eating Doritos all day. They want you to argue with that guy about Israel and Palestine because that's good for them. They feed off of that. And by they I mean the elite of the world, everybody that's running stuff. They want you to fight with Cheeto Dust 69 on Twitter because it's good for them and it keeps them in power and it keeps you distracted. I'm not interested in that. Can you find some interesting, funny, cool stuff on Twitter? Yeah, but it's not where you're going to end up being productive, especially not in the comment sections.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I think another thing that scares a lot of people, or like people just don't believe in the whole elite, because again, it induces fear into them, thinking, oh,
Right.
There's this huge group of people, but in reality, just know that like they're always there.
Right.
Like it's not like, oh yeah, one day these people just showed up and somehow they're just in control of everything. They've been doing it for hundreds of years.
These are families.
Yeah,
they have lineage and
yeah.
they go back hundreds of years and they have been running everything for the longest time.
Yeah.
Not just since the internet was around, since everything. They have been running all the politics, all of everything throughout the entire world basically for hundreds of years. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, there was this other. There's tons of them.
Well, yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And there's so many like conspiracy theories that go on with it. One thing though that I think they can never really escape is so let's say someone were to create an event like this, right? They
Right.
know it's going to happen, but I believe that you can never be fully prepared for what the final outcome is.
Right.
So they can make or they can like orchestrate a blackout, right? Maybe they have somewhere off the grid. Maybe it's limited to just America. Like we don't know. Again, it's just thoughts that are swirling in your head, and that's the way it's meant to be. But
Right.
they can make a blackout and they can send it through America. They can go to another country. They can go off the grid. But let's say for some reason, like their secret flight got delayed, right? Like in the end, it would still end up affecting them.
Right.
And I think it's what they create, like they're always going to have to face in some sort of way. And I
Yeah.
think they like creating and what in their eyes is something perfect, and how they can change to the world, right? And then they create it, and then they see, oh well, this is different than how I imagined it, because nature comes into play. Nature is
Right.
something you can't account for.
Right.
um and again, they never know what the final outcome is truly going to be. And it was in that movie actually when GH is talking to the mom at the
Yeah.
table, and they're having like drinks after whatever happened, and he's telling like his story, and she gets all scared by what's happening. Let me see, I think I have a quote actually. um his friend, GH has a friend
Oh.
who um, warned him about the attack. Sorry, spoiler alert
Right.
if you guys haven't seen the movie, but um, he says his friend told him, "Oh, it's as a joke. It was just my annual meeting with the annual cabal that runs the world."
Yeah.
And GH took that as a joke, and then he thought about it for a second. He was like, "Wait, like, oh, that'd be so crazy, haha!" And then he was
Right.
like, "Oh," because then he would later get um, a phone call telling him to take care of himself. Like, oh no, like something could actually be happening.
Right.
Um, and I mean, I just thought that was interesting. Wasn't really anywhere I was going with it, but it just,
Yeah.
kind of
No,
tied
he
in.
got a. Literally in the movie, he got a phone call from one of these people, and he was joking, but the guy was dead silent. And he even said in the movie, "This guy jokes with me all the time about this stuff,
Yeah,
but he was being serious this time
yeah.
because he, like,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, but I mean, he knew that something was going to happen, but there was no way he could control it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep. He was just doing what he knew to do. He got out of his circumstance wherever he was and
Yeah.
said, "Take care of yourself. I can't help you. God knows if I can even help myself, but just
Right.
take care of yourself."
Right.
So, there were some other interesting things I saw in the
Okay.
movie.
Yeah.
There was the point where I think it also may have been in the flood. It was the night when they go to sleep. One of the nights when they go to sleep, and you can see um, the Earth getting darker, and they pan out to space, and they show the American flag on the moon. And there were so many other symbols like that. When I was in 8th grade, I had an English teacher where we would watch movies,
Uh huh.
and he would pause the movie. We watched Castaway with Tom Hanks,
Okay.
and he found all these things, and he would say, "Oh, look out for symbols or these quotes or things that were meaningful." And he taught me how to like break down movie structure and symbols. And I saw the flag, the flyers, um, the eyes, and then there's one other thing. I can't remember what it was, but it's interesting because they have the conspiracy theory now about if we really ever went to the moon.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very interesting seeing, oh, that they showed it was like a faded out Planet American flag on the moon.
Yeah. I think we've been to the moon since then, but I don't think
Yeah,
we went to the moon then because we were in a race with, I forget, it was either China or Russia.
Russia.
Russia, yeah, it was Russia. And it was like who can get to the moon first and blah blah blah. And so we basically faked it. I mean, like they did this on a movie set. It was I think it was Stanley Kubrick, the director, like directed the moon landing or something. It was like, yeah, it was like some famous director like directed the fake moon landing, and he was like, "Yeah, we did this, and we never went." So I mean, it's pretty clear to me that we've been to the moon since then,
Yeah,
but we faked it the
yep.
first time.
Yeah, I would think, especially with I mean, you can't fake all these times Musk has sent a rocket into space, or Bezos
Yeah,
sent his, like at
right.
some point we were going to get to the point where we could do it. I just think, correct, when do you know that time frame of when we landed on the moon? Was that the 60s?
I think it was the
Was it the
60s.
60s? Because I
I forget
remember,
exactly what year. It was in the
yeah,
60s
I
though.
remember learning somewhere that like that whole thing kind of led into the arms race with Russia. It's always been about those three superpowers, like us,
Yeah,
China, and Russia.
right.
And I think there's a movie about it. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. Um, and America like figured out that if they could just make it seem like they landed on the moon first, they would win.
Right.
And they didn't matter. They didn't care what it took.
Yeah.
They had all these scientists doing like fake calculations and all this other stuff, and they had a spy from Russia that was there. And when they sent them back over to Russia, the spy back over to Russia, Russia gave them like all this secret stuff that the US was doing, and it
Mm-hmm.
set them back. Whatever. It was like this big thing. And I see again, I saw all these things that just were piled into one movie. Um, and like the flyers, the snake, it represents some sort of not, I don't want to say terrorist group because it's not a terrorist group, but I remember seeing it somewhere. Like it
Right.
represents some tribe or some group somewhere across the world, and there's just so
Right.
many things that they actually like packed into one movie. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like when you're in school and they tell you to read a book, they tell you to read the book the first time through and just skim it,
Right.
or I mean, you know, you're reading it
Yeah.
and maybe take notes, and then the second time you read it through and you're actually understanding it and you're breaking it down. It's the same thing with the movie. Like maybe there was a bunch of stuff I probably didn't catch in the
Yeah.
beginning, um, and if I watched again, like you see it, and it happens like
Right.
the more you listen to a song, the more
Right.
you hear the lyrics.
Yeah.
You know,
Right. When you listen to a song, you can hear the different instrumentals
yeah,
and the beat and then the actual lyrics of what they're saying. I
yeah,
was just gonna make that comparison, but
yeah,
yeah, I mean when you watch these movies, like you can just see the symbolism is it is literally all over.
yeah.
You know,
Yep.
it's like not they're not trying to hide it from you.
No, because now, correct me if I'm wrong. This may be wrong, but I do remember. I wish I had like the. It's not a tweet, but I wish I had the evidence or like the Bible verse. But if you're a Christian, or maybe if you're not, you just heard about it. You've heard about the Antichrist.
Yeah.
And one thing that the Antichrist, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe has to do is when they come to Earth, they have to um, they have to reveal their intentions before
Mm,
they have
yeah.
to reveal their intentions so that people can decide whether or not they bow down to them, and if they don't, they die. But
Right.
they have to show what it is, because otherwise it's like it's one of those nature rules that you can't break.
Yeah, it's a universal law.
Yeah,
It's like some real black magic stuff. But
yeah,
yeah,
and
they have to tell you what they're going to do before they do it because it's part of their whole religion of the Antichrist and
yeah,
devil worship and all that stuff.
which is actually funny because it's not limited to Christianity. I was looking at the other day. There's a there's a figure in Islam as well. It's called, he's the deceitful Messiah is translated to English. It's Ad-Dajjal, and it's essentially the same character as the Antichrist. Again, their religion is different. They have different stories and different accounts.
Yeah.
Um, but it has the same principle, and I don't really know of any other examples besides that. I was trying to look and find them, but I just think like it's interesting because at some point you have to say, oh, every religion is based on one key principle. Like that's just how it has
Right.
to go at some point. And I think there's so many similarities that you can find that you never really see until you look
Yeah.
hard enough.
Yeah. Um religion's something I've gone back and forth on so many times
Yeah, me too.
because it's just like are they trying to get you to believe in something that's not true so you're distracted, or is it the true thing and they're going against it because they don't want you to believe it?
Mm-hmm.
Like what is it? So I've gone back and forth many times on like is Christianity the thing or is it like no religion? I'm either like Christian or
Nothing.
nothing else,
Yeah.
you know? And I've gone back and forth
Yeah.
on it and I just can't put my finger on it. And so I say, yeah, like I got it. You have to act as if God exists because if you don't, then it's so easy to fall into traps of temptation and all these other things that you have to act as if there is something that created us that is guiding us and that can, pave the way for your success, but also discipline you.
Yeah.
Like that is
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So I grew up Catholic.
mhm,
Um, my grandparents were Catholic. My parents, my dad was raised Catholic. My mom did like adult Catholicism stuff, so she got
right,
confirmed when she was an adult. And they got married in a church. And when I grew up, like in the beginning, like I went to like religious class like every week. I never went to a
right,
Catholic school or anything like that, um, but I went to a religious school every week. We tried to go to church. It didn't really work. But the one thing I've been trying to do is go to church on Christmas and Easter, and
yeah,
I took my sister to mass on Christmas Eve with me, and like in the past, I don't know, in the past like 5 years, I've also debated it. Like obviously, being Catholic, it's a division of Christianity, but it also makes me wonder if like going to Christianity and doing that is much better than being Catholic. Like Catholic is you're known to be very strict, which
yeah,
is not actually true. Like I can tell you there's so many people like older generations probably follow a little bit of that, but
yeah,
they like everybody who is religious until they're not. Um
yeah.
but
When
so
it's
I
convenient.
yeah, right? Right? Um and so like I grew up religious and I took my sister to Christmas Eve and my cousin had a baptism like 2 days before or maybe a day before, and I listened to like all the stuff I used to hear when I was younger, and they talk about like sacrifice, like when they talk about um what's it called, practicing. There's a word for when you practice like being a Satan follower. I don't remember what it is.
A
Um,
devil worshiper.
yeah, but it's like there's like a term saying you practice something, and that's like it's the practice of
A Satanist.
no, that's like what you're called, but
Oh,
there's like a name for the practice. Um, but so anyway,
mm,
my cousin was getting baptized, and the priest goes, "We are now going to put the baby on the altar of sacrifice." And I'm in a Catholic church, and I'm like, they just said, wait a minute. They just said
mhm,
altar of sacrifice. Like they're putting my little cousin on an altar of sacrifice. Like something about that doesn't sound right.
right.
And so then I go to mass on Christmas Eve, and my sister hasn't been maybe in to like a traditional like Catholic mass in maybe I don't know 8 years, and she goes in and she gets scared. They start lighting candles and she sees like all this stuff, and we're done. We walk out of the mass, she gets through it. She won't take like communion or anything. We get through and we're done and we go back to the car. She goes, "It just felt like we're in a cult." And I was like, "Yeah, like I noticed that too. Like it was never like that when I was a kid." And they had this candle stuff, and like singing I get because you're praising, but it was, dude, it was so weird. It was surreal. I was like, what is going on? Like this is two coincidences in 2 days around a religion where it's supposed to be based on Jesus's birth, which also I've been reading the Bible like a little bit, and the dates don't match up with where what Christmas is supposed to stand for and what Easter stands for are wrong.
Well, yeah. Well, that's because we changed the
The
calendar.
calendar,
Yeah.
but even with that, they depict the seasons for Jesus's birth as spring.
Right.
Maybe not depict, but that's the way that it's written is actually spring.
Right.
But we celebrate Christmas as the day of Jesus's birth on December 25th.
Right.
But in reality, it's actually not in December. It was during springtime. Unless it was like unless you're in like Dubai or Florida or something and it was just, like really warm.
Yeah.
But it's not. Where
No,
where
and
they're from.
they switch the calendar around, and it really fucks with us because,
Yeah.
like, the new year technically doesn't start until the spring.
Yeah.
Like you
April
can't.
1st.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't. And that's actually, it's actually their way of laughing at us because they put April Fool's Day on April 1st, and it's just their way of kind of mocking us. Is like, look at you
You're an idiot.
idiots.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
right, exactly. So, but yeah, they switched the calendar around, and basically nothing new can start in the dead of winter when literally nature follows this. Animals go into hibernation and plants die off.
yeah.
Humans, for some reason, don't fall into the category, either of those categories. Obviously, we can't hibernate or just die, but you know,
Yeah.
nothing new can just start up in the dead of winter. It has to start in the spring when everything, excuse me again,
Starts blooming.
springs up and blooms up. But nobody questions it because it's the way it's been for years. This is not the right calendar. It is
No.
not
No.
January 24th today.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, it should be shifted, but nobody's ready for that
No.
conversation. It's
No.
just like it's
No.
too
No.
inconvenient to switch the calendar and go to something that makes a lot more sense. And the whole
Yeah.
daylight savings thing and
Yeah, I don't like it. And I think it's funny because if you told someone they were going to change the calendar, I guarantee everybody's first thought would be, my birthday's gone.
yeah,
Everybody's going to think the way. They're going to be selfish. Me personally, I don't like my birthday at all. I hate praise. I hate everybody. Like, even if they mean it, it just feels so like forced. Like, you got to be like, oh, like,
yeah,
happy birthday. Like, no,
right,
I don't care. It's just another day.
yeah,
It really is. Like, to be
yeah,
honest, like, what am I doing differently? Like, I'm spending, like, when you have a birthday party, you spend hundreds to maybe thousands of dollars for 4 hours for someone to just
right,
celebrate, like,
yeah,
you being born. In other countries, it's the, you celebrate the parent, you celebrate the mom who gave birth to you. You give
yeah,
your mom presents, you give her whatever her way is, or how you guys celebrate or give your love. Like, that's what they do.
yeah,
Somehow America is the only place where the person who is born on that day, well, I get it, it's a celebration of life. Like, that's something I can understand to be
yeah,
celebrated, but I just think we take everything to such an extreme level where it just doesn't need to be.
yeah. Uh, I mean I enjoy my birthday because it's a day where like I take that day for myself
Mhm.
and my family
Yeah.
and my friends that I have 4 or 5 friends that I consider
Yeah.
family. Have them over, have some family over, and we have dinner. We whatever. But people are throwing these grand parties
Yeah.
with tons of people there, and it's a day for them to just like let loose and party and do drugs and alcohol and everything. I'm like, no, I'd rather just like spend my day, celebrate. If we're gonna celebrate my life, I want to celebrate it with my family and, you know, a few close friends,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But people take it like way too far, you know?
Well,
I
yeah,
don't know.
and
It's just turned into a weird thing.
well, yeah, and I guarantee if you were to say to someone, if you told someone who celebrates that way, if you probably put them in the reverse situation,
Right.
they think that you're crazy. They would
Right.
be like, "Oh, like this is all you do all day?" Like,
People think I'm boring. I'm
yeah,
like, no, I just like to spend time with the people I actually love, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, and like there's not, and once you get to a certain point, like there's just not stuff you do. Like when you're younger, you do bowling, you do themed birthday parties. Once
Yeah.
you get older, like you realize what's important to you. You realize that family's important, and
Yeah.
um, yeah, I've done a lot of like reflecting on that the past few years, and I had I want to say he was a coach, but I don't think it was a coach. Who, you know, those people that celebrate their birth week, like they say, "Oh, it's my birth week," like it's the
Oh
week of
yeah,
my
like we're
birthday.
partying all
Yeah,
week.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "It's my birth week," and I'm like,
Who the hell
what?
care? Yeah.
Like what does that
Yeah.
even mean? And he's
Right.
like, oh well, it's the week of my birthday. Like every day is special. And I'm like, well, you can think every day is special, but if you mean like you're getting some sort of
Right.
special treatment because your birthday is this
Every
week,
for
like
7 days. I don't.
no,
Yeah, I
man.
don't think
Even
so.
even on your birthday, like
Right.
I don't know. That's just kind of the way I see it. It's just we glamorize things too much.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think.
birthdays. The way like lighting, like having a cake, lighting candles, and turning the lights off, and everyone gathers around and
Yeah, I
sings.
have.
That's
I've
like
seen
a
that. I've
that's like
seen
a
that. Yep.
fucking ritual. I'm like,
Yep.
I don't really want you to sing happy birthday to me. I don't really need it. I don't fucking eat cake anyway.
dude.
So just tell me happy
Yeah,
birthday and let's have a good time. Like,
right. And it's like it's the most awkward 10 to 15 seconds of your life. You're sitting in front of a cake just like
right,
this, like you
yeah,
don't know where to look, you don't know who to
right.
look
And
at, you don't know
everyone's
what to
just
do.
staring at
Yeah,
you,
you're like, what?
singing happy birthday, and it's like,
Okay,
yeah.
another year.
Right, they're all lighting candles and gathering around. Yeah, so that's kind of like a ritual too. There's a lot of things we do that are like rituals that we don't even
You don't
realize
even realize.
that
And
have just been like
yeah.
ingrained into who we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, our society. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
So what else? We have a couple other things here that we've kind
Yeah.
of touched on. I don't know how long you have.
Hey, man, I got on the. I think I got some more time.
All
So
right,
so we're good.
all right. I can cut some of this
Yeah.
out.
No,
This
you're good.
dead time.
You're
So
good. Let's talk about aliens.
let's talk about aliens.
Let's talk about aliens,
Are they real?
dude. I don't know, man. Are we the aliens? Like,
Yeah, technically.
right? We
I mean,
came
if we
into.
go and invade another, like if we go inhabit Mars, is there other life on Mars?
I don't know.
Then we'd be the aliens to them.
Yeah.
But I mean, is there life outside of Earth? Yes, 100%. That's not even a question to me. But is there going to be some sort of alien invasion where they try and take over the planet? Probably not, because some signs point to the fact that extraterrestrial life has already been here, or that we were an advanced society before, like the
The
pyramids and
pyramids.
right, so
Yeah.
that we were an advanced society before, and then we got totally wiped out with the flood and other stuff,
Yeah.
and then we had to restart, or the extraterrestrial life had come and helped us build these things. So
Yeah, it's hey, to be honest, it's like it's kind of cool either way, right? Like
yeah,
if you look up one day and like you look out your window and there's just like this like it's going to freak you out at first if you see this weird like creature or whatever, like who knows, maybe they're even like very similar to us. But like actually like get like if you could talk to them or communicate to them in some way and you showed that you didn't mean any harm or something, like
yeah,
that would actually be so cool. I just think like our society just isn't. I'm not ready for that, man. We're not.
yeah,
Give
no,
us maybe another
no,
30 years where all skyscrapers are like, you know, like when you see in like a video game where they give you like a futuristic like society and
yeah,
um. I think Mercedes had a car that looked like it a few years ago, and like the wheels have like what look like LEDs on it, and you have all these cool doors. Like
right.
maybe wait until then, so maybe we're a little bit more like advanced. But as of right now, like I don't know. I just don't know if that's again. It's something that's on the back burner, but you're like,
Well, I
eh.
think I think if you give us 30 years, we'll be even worse than we are
Yeah,
now. Have you ever
I
seen?
think to some
Have you
extent.
seen the movie Idiocracy?
No,
No.
no.
Well, basically, there's these two people that go into this military research program, and they're like, "We'll wake you up in 100 years," and they're researching them, but throughout the 100 years or whatever it is, society devolves,
Oh,
and it's like like totally different. Like they're speaking gibberish, like words are just totally like brought down to basically just like mumbling. Like it's not
like
even
cavemen.
yeah, like cavemen. Yeah, it's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
And we just go back into that state, and then they have to like save the planet or whatever.
Yeah, hey, I mean that makes me wonder though, like with every like thing of technology we have, does our society need like some sort of reset? Like I get it,
I think we're kind
it's
of going
probably
through
some
it in a
sort of
way.
like someone's gonna say it's population control, and I think nature always has a way of kind of like doing its thing.
Yeah,
Um, but like at some point, like me personally, like I can't doom scroll anymore. I used to do it so much that like I just can't do it. Um, And I think people are going to get to that point. There's going to be a point where they complete every video game,
yeah,
where, you know, like they complete all those things to life that probably mean something in the moment. but don't really pertain to like everything else that life was before.
Yeah.
And like maybe that's like a good aspect to have, like maybe a balance of, excuse me, both sides.
Right.
Um, but I don't know, like there's so many cool places that I want to go, that I want to travel to in like my lifetime, that like it's so crazy to me that 100 years ago they didn't have any kind of this technology, and it was there, and they saw the same things, you know. And like the only thing that's changed is we have a little 6-inch device in our hand
Yeah.
that we rely on. Like you don't even realize you rely on it until it's gone. You really don't. It's crazy. Like, to be honest, I'm gonna sound like an idiot, but I don't know if I can read a full map. Like,
Yeah.
like if I were to have to go from Maryland to, I don't know, Florida, like obviously you take I-95, but there's a bunch of exits. There's a bunch of little roads in there that you gotta see. Like I don't know if I could read a
Yeah.
map. I don't know if I can learn, like all those little skills, cartography. I don't know. Like someone learned it at some point. Now I don't know if
Yeah.
I can. I'm still
Right.
relying on Apple Maps.
Right. But if we have a blackout, you're gonna have to read a map, and we're not gonna know how.
Well,
It's like all these skills that we probably should have kept, but we never did because it's so convenient now. We
yeah,
don't have to know any of it.
yeah.
We don't have to know simple math because we can pull out our phone and our phone will do it for us.
Calculator. I was at McDonald's the other day. Hey, look, this isn't a knock on anybody that works at McDonald's, man. But I gave this person, my total was like $5.40, right?
Right.
And I gave him $6,
Right.
and he was like, "It's not enough." And I'm like, "What do you mean it's not enough? Total's
Yeah.
540, right?" And he said, "It's not enough. Your total's 540." I said, "Dude, it's a 5 and a 1." And he's like, "Oh, what? Like, what?" And so he goes, "Oh, well, I guess I gotta get you your change." And I guess, like, at the to go window, or even, I don't even know if it does it on the other POSs for you guys,
Yeah.
but when you put the cash in the drawer, whatever you do with it, it gives you your balance or whatever's left. But this guy looked at the balance, and then he pulled out his phone to use his calculator to know what change it was. And then he, like, couldn't count the change. And I was like, "Dude, just keep it." And I drove away. I was like, "Dude, like it's 60
Yeah.
cents, man. Come on."
Right.
Like do you remember when we were in elementary school? I don't know if you did this, but I had the paper of like 25 math problems, and you had like a
Yeah.
minute to do each side, and it was like
Yeah.
a race. Like everybody would start going at the same time. And somewhere like now we can't even do 100 minus 40 or
Right.
100 minus 60. Whatever I just
Right.
said it
We can't
was.
do simple math.
Yeah.
Like if you ask, you know, a 15-year-old their math facts by fives, I don't think they can tell you what 8 times 5 is. I
No.
don't think 9 out of 10 could tell you.
Probably not.
You know, and
Yeah.
that sucks
Yeah.
because those people are 5 years younger than me.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, I think also though, I just think the whole COVID years just took a very it kind of like knocked people into reality. Like when we were done with COVID, I think I was going into my junior year, and we had ninth graders that acted like they were like seventh grade because they never had. There's a reason there's people in the grade above you in your school.
Right.
Like you have kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. When you're in kindergarten, you look up to the first graders. Heck, you look up to the fifth graders, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
it shows you that like there's levels of maturity, and when you go right from sixth grade to ninth grade or whatever it is, like it's
Right.
such a big gap, and like we just mentally can't even process that or handle it, and it affected like a lot of people a lot, like even myself included. I didn't sleep through any of my classes, but I definitely didn't pay as much attention as if I were like sitting there in a classroom
Yeah.
with someone teaching me something. And I learned stuff by repetition. Like personally, I have to write stuff out.
Mhm.
And just being on like a computer and snip tooling my notes or whatever it was, like I wasn't learning. I probably cheated on some of my stuff. Like
Yeah. I
it's
cheated on most of it during COVID
yeah, like it
because
was
it was
just
just like to get through.
yeah, and to me I was like, oh yeah, that's me using my resources. Like That's what they gave me.
Yeah.
And if they didn't want it to be that way, then well, too bad. I graduated, so
Yeah. I mean, even though most of it in school is irrelevant anyway,
yeah.
and they're indoctrinating you, and they, we can get
Yeah,
into that
yeah,
whole
you know, you know, you
thing.
know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But anyway, to get back on aliens,
yeah, dude, that's crazy. We went very far from that.
yeah, um, well, Project Bluebeam,
Oh yeah,
which we kind of talked about a little bit,
yeah,
um,
um,
is that they're going to stage an alien invasion.
yeah.
You know,
It's a
the
very
government is.
interesting. Yeah, it's a very interesting concept. Like when you look about how technology has evolved, like it's so possible, right? We have projectors. We have all this technology, right? That can easily we have CGI in movies. Like when you see
Yeah.
the Spider-Man movie,
Right. Yeah.
um, and you have Mysterio and you have the Waterman, and then you see what it looks like behind the scenes. Like it's so easy to do that. All they got to
Right.
do is just dress humans up in
Right.
costumes,
And
and then
literally in the movie they had all these effects and everything,
yeah,
and they even in the movie said that he's using CGI to do it.
yeah,
And so it was him using CGI, but the movie was also CGI, you
yeah.
know?
Well, to be like honest, this is probably one of like the more stupid things they could do because there's so many ways to know it's not real. You know.
But the average person isn't going to know.
But I think if you give the average person like if they see some like they'll find some sort of detail in there. We're not completely idiots. Like our brains aren't all mush.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone can find it might take them a little bit longer. Or maybe we're completely wrong.
I
You know,
think
like I'm
I think
completely open to that possibility. I don't know.
I think that they have different technology than what they're showing us in movies and stuff.
Probably. Probably.
They're 50 years ahead of what we already have now.
I mean, yeah, no,
Probably.
I definitely agree with that. And again, I think part of it may actually be good, right? Like we reveal things very slowly to our society.
Right.
Oops. We reveal things very slowly, and I think maybe like sometimes that's necessary.
Yeah.
I think we should probably try and squeeze out of the most little bit of human that we have before we evolve. Like it would be so cool 60 years from now if I was a cyborg and I just didn't have to worry about joint pain. I didn't have to worry
We're
about anything.
basically cyborgs now if you I mean we wear our phones on our wrists with our Apple Watches,
Yeah,
and we have our AirPods. They're training us, and even like Neuralink with Elon Musk is
yeah,
he's like implanting chips into people's brains,
yeah. Which
and it's a
people get very. I personally I wouldn't want that. Sorry
I
for
would
cutting
never
you
do that,
off.
but people are going to become okay with it because, oh, I'm fine with wearing it on my wrist.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Like if it were to save my life, I think I would definitely do it right. So
yeah,
let's say like 30 years from now, barely I'm almost 50 and my life is like oh like there's still 50 more years. And by the way, like we're going to live longer anyway, just in a regular human body. Like that's just proven. We have cures to stuff, maybe not western, but
unless they have us eating bugs by 2030.
some bugs I look some yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we can live on
Because they don't want
certain
us eating
vegetables with
meat
certain
or
vitamins.
anything.
Yeah, but I mean, I maybe at some point we don't need it. Maybe our biochemistry or whatever it is can alter. Who knows?
That's
We
true.
evolve.
Yeah.
It's going to take us a really long time. But anyway, again, back to aliens. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably more one of the dumber things. I have a video I saved on Twitter. I'll overlap it over the
Okay.
podcast.
All right.
Um, they showed Santa during Christmas.
Yeah.
You can't see the projector or anything, but there were sightings of people taking videos of like Santa going through the sky, and I was like, oh well, that's like the test for it, you
Yeah.
know? Like they're taking
Yeah.
something that to the extent of our knowledge, and when you're younger, you think it's real, then it's not real. Which I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't think Santa's real. Like just giving presents. I think the whole like
Oh, why not? Come
holiday. Yeah,
on.
right. But I think the whole holiday is like misinterpreted anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
but yeah, I don't know, man. Aliens. I don't know.
We'll know when we get there, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
There's just so many theories about what's going to happen. You won't know until it
No,
actually
no,
happens.
no.
You know?
Yeah,
It's kind of like the blackout thing. You're going to have no idea and you're not going to be prepared until it actually happens.
yeah,
And then you're going to be like, I prepared for a totally different thing.
yeah.
You know?
But you know what? For the most part, humans are very resilient. I truly believe that, and
Yeah.
I think we like instant gratification or like whatever it is. Um, but I think when you're put into a scenario like that, your adrenaline is high. You know, like your adrenaline will probably it'll spike every day. Like if you have to hunt or whatever. But I think like over time, again, everything takes time. People don't understand that, but everything takes time. I think if we're put in that situation, if you make it go long enough, we'll be fine. We'll learn to live again.
I like to think that, but
Ah,
part of me is also like, it could be the end. You know?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think it'll seem like that, right? If something like that were to happen, it'll seem like the end of the world. And we make
Yeah.
things look like it's the end of the world. Like our phone broke. Oh no, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
You learn to live without it. Um,
Right.
I don't know. I personally believe if it's the end of the world, it's going to end with two nukes or nukes across every country, and everything's just blown to dust. And Earth is just going to be
Yeah.
uninhabited. There's going to
Right.
be no life that can grow on it like that. I mean, well, you have Chernobyl in the forest in
Yeah.
um, Japan, like the where they bombed in Japan.
Nagasaki.
Yeah, you can see like trees started growing again, and like vines all over the buildings. Like eventually,
Yeah. Possibly.
some form of nature or something will happen. I do think it's very
Yeah.
interesting that maybe thousands of years ago, like we went through the same thing. Like that's crazy to think to me because Earth has been around for so long.
Right.
But I guess we'll just know. I guess we'll just deal with it when it gets to that point.
Yeah. I gotta use the bathroom real quick.
Go ahead.
This morning and all right guys, we're back. We're talking about how I hurt my neck. So I just woke up this morning and I moved and then my neck had just like it got all tight and I was like, "Oh, come on." Like
Yeah,
I
right.
got to sit still today and like get stuff done and like I literally can't move my neck. I can't
Yeah.
turn it without it hurting and it's
Yeah,
like
dude. The worst is like
yeah.
when I have to make like a right turn and I have to like look
Yeah.
out my window and I'm
Yeah.
turning my whole body just to
Right.
turn. Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, now that I'm back, I hope this thing hasn't been covering my face on the camera the
Dude,
whole
I was
time.
thinking about that the whole time. I've been trying to move it just to see like
Yeah,
where
I
it's
can't tell.
been.
Either way, I think it's fine. Well,
It'll be
it'll be fine. It's a
fine.
learning experience. This is the first time that we're using these, so
Yeah. You
yeah.
know,
So
maybe we can. I don't
and
know. We'll
yeah,
see.
I mean, we got a lot of new stuff that we're
Yeah,
doing.
man.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I've got my new kind of other personal channel that I'm kind of
Yeah.
working on, and it's I'm calling it the Colin Reich Show, but that's kind of temporary. I don't know what it's gonna end up being. I don't really have like a name for it
Hmm.
because we're kind of doing. We're gonna do some vlogs. Right now, I'm just like recording videos of me talking about, just like
Whatever
short
you want to
little
talk about.
whatever about like, 10-minute videos of me talking about whatever comes to mind.
Yeah.
Like
Little
you know,
rants.
yeah, just 10 or so minutes of me just like saying whatever's on my mind, what it on that specific day. So you
Yeah,
know,
man. Have you? So I got to ask, how'd you come up with the name of Collective Consciousness?
um, I was just kind of like thinking of names because it used to be From the Outside In,
Dude, that's
and
cool.
I like that, but then I was like, I wanted to change it, and I wanted to make something different, and I wanted to make something that was more me,
Hmm.
because I mean, I thought that was pretty cool. It was From the Outside In,
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
it meant to look at things, from outside the box. going from the outside and then looking in. Um, and so that was really cool. But then I was like, what's something that people can kind of like can connect everybody? Well, collective consciousness,
Yeah.
and that just it sounds cool, and it's like
Yeah.
and I was able to get a logo for it and do everything. So I don't know. I just that kind of resonated with me.
Have you ever thought about rebranding again?
I have, but I feel like rebranding would kind of I don't know. The more you rebrand, like the harder it is to keep up with it all.
Mm-hmm.
Because when people know it is one thing, and then you
Yeah, and then you
rebrand, and
switch.
it's
Yep.
just like you overhaul everything,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like it's good the way it is, and I
Yeah.
haven't come up with a good enough idea to replace it.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm gonna keep it the way it is for the time being.
Yeah.
But if something comes up, then I'm open to it. If there's a better idea out there, but right
Yeah.
now,
Guys, make sure to send in ideas for rebranding.
yeah,
No, I'm kidding.
yeah. If you have
I'm
any
kidding. I'm kidding.
ideas
I'm
and
kidding.
like,
And
I
also send in some topics too. That's
yeah,
like, to be honest, that's the hardest part, man. You guys had no way of knowing this, but like we spent like hours trying to figure out something that was good to talk about. It just
right,
everything like we were talking about just becomes so repetitive.
right. It's all connected, and you can't talk about one thing without
The other.
because you saw how quickly we were jumping around topics and
Yeah.
jumping around different ideas, and we try and talk about one thing, and then it just goes into another. Like
Yeah. Yep.
that's why it's just. I mean, it's really hard to sit down and have a conversation for an hour, let alone the podcast that I've done for 3 hours
Yeah, I don't
that
know how you did
somehow
that. I have no idea how you did
turn
that.
out good. Like I don't
Yeah.
it's a gift. It like the fact that I'm able to do it is
Incredible. It
yeah,
is.
it's
I mean, truly, I when I was watching that movie, I had to stop like 50 minutes in, and
yeah,
I didn't watch it for like 2 days. I was like, oh, this is boring me, and then I picked it up again. Like, I don't know if it's I necessarily have a shorter attention span, but like, I'm sure if we probably had a conversation for 3 hours, I could probably do it, but doing it like time and time again.
yeah,
Like, I feel like me personally, I have a very bad habit of repeating a lot what I say and incorporating it into new thoughts, and then I just circle back to what I was talking about originally, and
yeah,
it's so dumb and it doesn't flow.
yeah. It's hard sometimes because when you're sitting there for 3 hours, you don't remember what you talked about an hour ago.
Yeah.
Like you have no, like it's just gone so many different. I've only done probably like 2 3 hour episodes, but I've done some 2 hour episodes, and it's like by the end of it, your mind is just totally fried. You are just like so mentally exhausted. It's just like get me the hell out of here. Like I enjoy it, but when you're done, you're drained, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, it comes with it. It comes with the job, I guess you could say, but I enjoy it. Um and not everybody's built for that.
Yeah.
Like doing a podcast means that you're going to have to take tons of time to record the podcast, to edit it, to make it look good, to make it sound good, to make sure that anybody will enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
make it look presentable.
So I mean, I know you already had a fair amount of knowledge on all the topics we discussed today,
Mm-hmm.
but just to give everybody like a general time frame, right? How
Right.
long did you spend like prepping for this episode? Not even like sound, just general, knowing what you were going to say or what you wanted to talk about, going through different, various topics. Like, how long did that take?
Um, Funny answer is 3 years because it's taken me 3 years to accumulate all this knowledge on all
Yeah.
these topics that I have. And we just brushed the tip of the iceberg. We didn't even zone in on one topic specifically and just do a deep dive on that thing.
Yeah.
Whatever which we could easily do with the
Yeah.
amount of knowledge I have on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So the funny answer is 3 years because over the span of since 2020, I've done research. I've looked at so many different things. But for this episode specifically, when we decided we're going to talk about this movie, we're going to talk about, aliens or whatever else we
Whatever.
covered.
Yeah.
I didn't really spend too much time preparing because it all like I can just bring it up to the top of my mind. So I didn't have to like take notes on what I wanted to say because
Hmm.
I just, I
It's
know it.
there.
At a certain point, you just know it.
Yeah.
So I guess the amount of time we spent talking about it and talking about,
It's probably all
right,
that was
is
included in that.
probably, yeah, that was
Yeah.
most of it. But obviously, watching the movie, if you want to include that. But
Okay.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't do too much time like going into it because I already knew
You
a lot of,
knew.
yeah,
Yeah.
I knew a
Yeah.
lot about it, but I mean, it was all in my mind. I was thinking about it,
Hmm.
trying to kind of refresh my brain on some of it, but
Yeah. Cool. Yeah,
yeah.
dude. Hey, I would love to sit and like pick your brain another time and just go
Yeah.
like into each topic. Because to be honest, I don't know how much I would know about it, but I know
Yeah.
I would learn,
Yeah.
and that like intrigues me. Learning and seeing someone else's point of view or perspective. And I seriously, I believe we've talked about this before. When two people just think the same things, like you don't butt heads in the aspect of you think differently, but
Yeah.
you bump heads in the aspect of you think you know everything about it,
Yeah.
or
Right.
you think you can't learn, or since you
Right.
have the same views. Like sometimes it is very good, especially for a conversation, when you have two different sides, because even if you don't agree with what they're saying, you're still listening, you're still processing, you're still
Yeah.
seeing where they're coming from,
Right.
playing devil's advocate in every situation. Like it's so much better, especially when you don't know a lot.
Yeah.
And I know you have so many other things that like you would love to talk about. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can
Yeah.
get into some sort of
Yeah, no,
rhythm or something.
I have no problem talking about this stuff. I have no problem talking about like anything else.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing it. I enjoy having
Yeah.
conversations. It's not like it's we can talk about conspiracies all day. We can talk about sports all day, and I'm knowledgeable of both.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
is probably a little more important than the other.
Yeah.
Is that well, we might all be wiped out tomorrow, and we won't be able to see the Ravens game. But who the hell cares?
Yeah,
So
dude.
it's just
Hey,
like, yeah.
them. Yeah, them Ravens fans, man.
Yeah, I
Take
know.
take away the game, and like you took away
I
the
know.
world. Which
Yeah,
hey, that's good for sports fans. But
yeah.
yeah, man. Hey, you hear that, guys? Like he's got
It's
a lot of stuff in that brain. So
I do, but at the same time, I talk to people that know way more than me. Like when I had Jake on the podcast, and we sat here for a couple hours, and I thought I knew stuff about conspiracies and or about any of these current events, and he blew me out of the water, and I couldn't because I had something to say, but he was already 10 steps ahead of me. So I say that, and he was like, bro, like that's old news.
yeah,
So I love having conversations with people that know more than me
yeah,
because I can just sit here and like, I don't really have to worry about it. They just
yeah.
take the reins. You know more than me. I'll sit back here, I'll learn.
Hmm.
And then when I have another conversation with somebody, I can bring up that stuff.
Yeah,
So, or I can go back and re-listen to that conversation and get something new out of it.
yeah,
So, I've had people on where they don't know as much as me or they know way more than me, and that's what I really enjoy doing is because I get a wide range of, guests and people that know different things and do different things. And we talked about this a little bit before. Is that is my podcast. That's what this entire show
hmm,
is bringing everybody together, no matter who you are, no matter what you like, what you know, what you're good at, and just bringing it into a thing that works and that everybody can kind of enjoy together.
yeah. Hey, man, be a little bit careful in bringing everyone together here. Now, with everything we just talked about, and you're saying I'm bringing everyone together. Hey, you almost know better. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, I'm not woke. I'm not woke, so don't worry
Simple
about yeah.
answer. I am
Yeah.
not woke.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Don't worry, I've not gone woke on anybody, but um, it's important for everybody to kind of stick together in times like these because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow and you're
Yeah.
not promised tomorrow. So you better tell the
Amen.
people you love that you love them and you better hold them close because if something were to ever happen, you wouldn't forgive yourself if you didn't. So that's important. That's probably the most important thing, you
Yeah.
know, other than buying a gun and learning jujitsu is, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate entertaining the conversation. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Of course.
I really appreciate this. I look forward to stuff that we're gonna do in the future.
Yeah, man.
Guys, can't tell if this is covering my face, but you got to you guys should check out my other channel. Just type in my name, Colin Reich. It'll come up. Or the links are down below, so you can
Either
check
one.
out any of the other
Either one.
videos that are floating in the air. Subscribe, hit the notification button, all the other stuff that Logan Paul tells you to do. Um,
Hit that button. Hit
yeah,
that bell.
hit that button. Go follow us on Instagram and TikTok and everywhere else that we're going to be posting stuff. And stay prepared and stay well. See you guys later.
See you.
All right. That was
Fun, man.
great.
That was awesome.
awesome. I didn't know it's always